There's something about you that you've never seen, though everyone around you sees it constantly. You've carried it your entire life. And the strange part, the part that would stop you cold if you truly grasped it, is that everybody else can feel it except you. Tonight I want to describe you from the outside, the way other people experience you, because you've never once had that view of yourself, and it's time you did. When you enter a room, something changes. Quietly, you're not the loud type, and that's part of what's going on. But the room reorganizes itself in small, unspoken ways. The anxious person calms down a notch. A conversation that was skirting around something fake finds its way back to something honest. Kids gravitate toward you like you're radiating heat. Animals that flinch from strangers press their heads into your palm. The quiet person in the waiting room, silent for an hour, turns of all the seats available to you and starts sharing something private, something even people close to them don't know. You're so accustomed to this that it no longer strikes you as unusual. But listen tonight, it is unusual. Deeply so. It's been happening your entire life, and you've chalked it up to coincidence, or being friendly, or being a good listener. All partly true, none of them the real answer. The real answer is older, simpler, bigger. My grandmother could see it the way some people can sense the mood of a room the instant they walk in. She had a word for what you're carrying, the light. Not a figure of speech, she meant it literally. The same way she meant everything, as plain fact. Certain people, she said, carry a light inside them that others can sense the way you feel heat from a fire across an open field, and the ones who carry it almost never know, because the light shines outward. It warms whatever's in front of it. The one place it never reaches is the person holding it up. That's you, friend. That's what tonight is about. I'm going to walk you through 5 signs that you're a light carrier, signs people have been reading off you for years, while you stood there puzzled about why they kept drifting closer. By the time we're done, you'll finally see yourself the way a room full of people already has. Sign 1. People hand you their heaviest burdens without being asked. This doesn't happen to everyone. Most people get the polite version of someone's life, the small talk, the surface-level update. You don't get that. You get the truth. The daughter-in-law who's told no one about her marriage tells you at the kitchen table. The coworker who's been barely holding it together breaks down in your office specifically, not the one down the hall. And strangers, I keep coming back to strangers, because they're the clearest proof. Someone with no history with you, no reason to trust you, nothing to gain. And within minutes, they're unloading something they've carried alone for years, half startled at their own mouth. Why am I telling you this? You've heard that line so often, it's become background noise. You never stop to answer it. Here's the old explanation. Heaviness moves toward warmth automatically, the way water runs downhill. Someone carrying more than they can hold doesn't scan the room and pick the ideal listener. Something in them senses warmth and moves before any decision is made. That warmth is the light you carry, facing outward, which is exactly why you can't feel it yourself. Which means you've spent a lifetime wondering why everyone brings you their stones, while you stood there feeling perfectly ordinary. You were never ordinary. You were the warmest presence in every room, and the stones proved it. Stones don't roll toward the cold. I watched my grandmother spot this once, and it stayed with me 50 years. We were at a big family gathering, and one woman sat off to the side, not in the middle of things. Notice that carriers rarely place themselves at the center. My grandmother nudged me. Watch her. Over the next hour, 4 different people wandered over to that woman's chair, one at a time, sat down, and started talking, not small talk. The real thing, voices dropping, leaning in. She took in each one fully, unhurried, offering advice only if asked. Every person left lighter than they'd arrived. You could see it in how they walked away. I said, "She's a good listener." My grandmother shook her head. "There are plenty of good listeners here tonight, and none of them have a line at their chair. Watch again. Watch what she isn't doing." I looked again, and understood. She wasn't performing, wasn't waving anyone over, wasn't signaling she was open for business. She was simply sitting there being what she was. And everyone who needed warmth found her anyway, pulled by something they couldn't name. My grandmother said, "That's the light. It doesn't announce itself or perform. It just is. And everything that needs warmth, in any room, feels it and comes." You can't learn this. You can't practice your way into it. You either carry it or you don't. That woman had carried it her whole life without knowing. The proof was in every chair around her. Count the chairs around you sometime. If they're always full and you never sent a single invitation, sign one has been true your entire life. Before the next sign, I need to tell you something. I won't be around forever, and most of what I know was never written down. So I finally sat and wrote it, all of it. 20 teachings, 4 parts in the order they're meant to be read. What the light is, and how to carry it without burning out. How to finally see the gift that only faces outward. Things I've never said on camera. It's called The Native Way, and it costs less than a dinner you'll forget by next week. Scan the code on your screen, or check the comments. But don't go anywhere. Sign 2 is the one that's worn you down your whole life, and tonight, you'll understand why that exhaustion was never a flaw. Sign 2. You feel what others feel, whether you want to or not. This goes past listening. This is physical. Your body doing something the modern world doesn't respect. You walk into a room and know something's off before anyone speaks. Someone tells you they're fine, and your chest tightens, because they're not, and your body knew before your mind caught up. You soak up the moods around you the way fabric soaks up water. Someone's grief weighs you down. Someone's anxiety speeds your pulse. Someone's anger lodges in your stomach like it's your own. You've fought this for years, tried building walls, tried toughening up, told yourself to stop being so sensitive. None of it worked, because it was never a dial you could turn. It's a frequency you were born tuned to. My grandmother called people like this the open-skinned, and counted them among the most essential people alive, because every group needs its early warning system. In the old camps, the open-skinned felt the shift in the group first, noticed the hidden suffering first, caught the laughter that was covering something. Without them, the camp lost its read on itself, and trouble grew unnoticed. You do this now, in your family, at your church, on your street. You feel the weather change before anyone else gets rained on. And it's cost you, I know. But hear the other side. The exhaustion is the price of the gift, not proof it's missing. A sensor that feels nothing is broken. The fact that you feel everything means you're working exactly as designed. Sign 3. Your presence changes rooms, and you're always the last to notice. Think honestly about the gatherings where you walked in, and something shifted the tension that was there before you arrived, and quietly wasn't afterward, though nobody said a word about it, and you did nothing obvious. Think of the sick rooms where a patient's whole face changed the moment you sat down, not because you brought medicine or wise words, but because what you carry walked in with you, and the room took it in the way a dark room takes in a lamp. Now think of the times you weren't there, and heard about it afterward. She wasn't there. It just wasn't the same. We needed you, and you felt guilty, like your absence had been some kind of failure. What they were really saying, underneath the politeness, was that the light was missing, and everyone in the room knew it. My grandmother identified carriers this exact way. She'd watch what happened to a room after a certain person left. The light isn't proven by its arrival, she'd say. It's proven by the shadow it leaves when it's gone. Check your own shadow sometime. The rooms that miss you aren't missing your personality. They're missing warmth you don't know you're giving off. And the shape of that absence is the outline of exactly what you carry. Sign 4. Cruelty confuses you more than it wounds you. This one runs deep, and you've felt it without ever naming it. When someone is genuinely cruel to you, your first reaction isn't anger or a plan to defend yourself. It's confusion. Why would anyone do that? Not calculated, just genuinely baffled. People have called that naive. But here's what it actually is. Someone who carries light has spent a lifetime generating warmth without trying, the way the sun doesn't decide to shine. For a person whose default state is warmth, cold simply isn't a language they speak natively. Cruelty confuses you because it's foreign to how you're built, not because you're naive, but because your wiring doesn't include a routine for causing harm on purpose. That pause of confusion before the hurt even lands is one of the clearest markers of the light. It can only exist in someone whose interior is genuinely warm all the way through. Someone in whom cruelty has never taken root. And when it comes at you anyway, your whole being says, honestly, I don't understand this. That's not ignorance, that's innocence. And innocence that survives into your 60s and 70s after everything you've seen isn't softness. It's the toughest kind of strength there is. The light refusing, after a lifetime of evidence, to accept that darkness is the norm. My grandmother said of people like this, "They've been burned 100 times and they're still shining." Not foolishness, the light insisting on itself. And here's something else about that confusion. It protects you too. People who mean harm can sense innocence, and it throws them off. It doesn't stop cruelty, but it makes it harder to commit. Cruelty works best against a target who fights back in kind, meets anger with anger, steps into the ring. When the target just stands there, genuinely bewildered, still warm even in the confusion, the cruelty finds nothing to push against. Many, not all, back off. Your confusion isn't only a sign, friend, it's a shield you never knew you were holding. The light defends itself by refusing to become the thing attacking it, and most attacks, unable to turn that warmth into a fight, lose interest, and move on. You've survived more than you realize, simply by refusing to understand cruelty on its own terms. Sign 5, the one holding all the others. You've been tired in a way rest never fixes, and you've blamed yourself for it. Listen closely, because this is where everything turns. And it turns toward you. You're tired, some of you deeply so, and you've read that tiredness as weakness, as age, as something broken in you. Here's what's actually going on. Nothing is wrong. You're carrying light in a dark century, and no one ever taught you how. That's the whole diagnosis. In the old camps, light carriers were spotted early and given 2 things the modern world forgot to pass down. First, tending. The camp cared for its light carriers the way you tend a central fire deliberately, with honor, because everyone understood that the fire warming the whole camp has to be fed itself, or it goes out. The carrier was never meant to burn alone. People brought wood to the ones who brought warmth. That system worked for 1,000 generations. Second, the teaching the plain, practical lesson in how to carry light without burning yourself out. And it comes down to this. The light isn't yours. You didn't create it, you can't manufacture more of it, and you're not responsible for how people receive it. You're the lamp, not the oil. The oil comes from something older and deeper than you. The lamp's only job is to stay lit, not to blaze, not to scorch, not to light every corner of every room single-handedly. Just stay lit. Staying lit is the actual work, and it requires the one thing you've never given yourself. The same warmth you hand out freely, turned inward, toward your own rest, your own upkeep, your own fire. You've been lighting every room and sitting in your own dark. That's not generosity. That's a lamp trying to illuminate everything except the hand holding it. So tonight, from someone who's watched carriers his whole life, I'm asking you to turn a little of that light inward. Not all of it, just enough to finally see, by your own light, what every room has always seen. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've been shining in every direction for decades, without anyone once telling you the light was real, that it mattered, that people felt it. It's real. It matters. They felt it. And tonight, someone's finally saying so. So there they are, the 5 signs. The stones that find their way to you. The open skin that absorbs everything. The rooms that shift when you walk in and dim when you leave. The confusion cruelty stirs in you instead of anger, and the tiredness rest can't touch, because it was never your body that was worn out. It was the untended flame. Count them, friend, and for so many of you watching, all 5 will fit, and if they do, hear the old verdict my grandmother would have delivered, having spotted you across a crowded camp in 4 seconds flat, smiling. You carry the light. You've carried it your whole life, facing outward, warming every room, unnoticed, unthanked, untended, and still, after everything, still shining. The old ones would have tended to you, named you, honored you, brought wood for your fire every single morning. You were born into a century that forgot how, so you've carried it alone. Tonight, that changes, because now you know, and knowing is the first log on your own fire. This audience is the second. Look through the comments and watch the other carriers finding one another. You were never the only lamp. You were simply the one nobody had told yet that you were already lit. Now you know. Now go tend the fire the world has been warming itself beside all along. It was always the most important fire in the room, and the room, even without saying so, always knew it. If this reached you, the book is out there, The Native Way. 20 teachings, 100 pages, written the way I'd talk to you if we were sitting face to face. Scan the code or check the comments. Read one chapter and sit with it. Tell me below which sign hit first, And who was the last person to bring you their stones? I read every comment. And if this is the kind of conversation you've been missing, subscribe. We're not chasing views here. We're gathering people who remember. See you next week. I'm not finished teaching yet.